powered by Reviting, streaming from the Reviting Digital Studio. It's the David Daily. Exploring frontier technology, artificial intelligence, quantum innovation, and the intersection of faith, funding, and the future. Here's your host, David Goki.
Welcome to another episode of Funding, Faith, and Future on the David Daily Show. We go live on every major platform weekly where we bring special guests to you that have a load of knowledge, a ton of experience, bringing funders and founders, mostly who care about faith, together in the conversation. So thank you for joining today. It's going to be another great episode. We have a very special guest on our show today, David Munson Jr. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here. And we have a lot to talk about because the world is in a really bad position and we need to change the way we do things. So that's really my mission in life, is to say we need to repent, which means to admit we're doing wrong and change our ways. And I started out on the climate issue because we're misunderstanding why carbon dioxide levels have risen. It's not man's emissions, but man's mistreatment of the earth that has destroyed carbon sequestration by plowing up the North American prairie, starting in the 1830s with the invention of the John Deere steel plow, which destroyed God's creation of this amazing carbon sink, the native grass prairie, and turned it into grain farming, which is a carbon emitter because the grain only grows part of the season. And by plowing the ground, you oxidize the carbon that was trapped in the soil. So we have to take care of the earth. We need to change the way we manage things. And that's why I wrote a book, which you can get at getrowalliance.org, and talk about how we can make the world carbon negative while we still use oil and gas. So glad to be with you and look forward to a great conversation.
Yeah, me too, David. And we've got first names that are the same, good first name. And the format for this show is we break our segment down into three main categories: funding, faith, and future tech. So I'm excited to get into our first category of funding. Roll the intro video.
Time to talk about funding.
That music always makes me dance kind of behind the scenes. And in the green room pre-show, we had some really awesome conversations. And I'm excited, David, to get your perspective on FOI equity, investment opportunity, and access. I know that's a huge part of your mission. Tell us more about what that means to you.
Well, FOI stands for fullofideas.com. And that accurately describes me as a serial inventor who has been given inventions to change the world for the better. And we're working on things as kind of small-minded as a new way to strengthen athletic, fast twitch muscles for better athletic performance and being able to measure intangibles like instantaneous power and reaction time that are too fast to calculate with a stopwatch. So we're currently developing our patent on fasttwitchmuscletrainer.com. And we have an offering that's a CF offering, so it's open to all investors, that's getting ready to be live on fullofideas.com, where people can make a small investment and have a chance for a huge gain without putting any major money at risk. So I don't want anybody to take college money. We want nobody to put more than 1 week's income into our investment opportunity. But we feel like if God has truly inspired me to make a big difference with some of these big inventions, and I'm very excited about native prairie grass and having an invention to sharply boost its use and make more food per acre than a grain crop by a huge margin. And so we're real excited about that. You can go to fullofideas.com and see our inventions. We have links to the various invention sets. I have a great way to harvest wave energy to capture the bulk of the energy that's in a moving wave in the ocean We're real excited about that to bring renewable power to the coastal regions. So a lot of stuff going on, and really hope people will dig into the sites. We got a ton of content, a lot of links, and there's a link to Get Reliance to get my climate program, get my book, see my video documentary. So it's a great thing, and we feel real excited about it. We think we've got enormous upside potential to make the world a better place, and by that, we have a win-win situation where we make the world better and we make our investors a ton of money.
Yeah, I love that. The website's really interesting, David, and we have a diverse audience that tunes into this show. Lots of people are interested in as investors into making investments. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this space. Like, tell us about that very first invention that you needed to get funded, because obviously you're an eclectic individual.
Well, I've been blessed with really good fortune. I'm fourth generation of a family that has done well, and my father is a third generation family member who had large inherited money from the age of 8 when his father died. Instead of living it up on his family money, he worked hard and smart, investing and doing things, and made a ton of more money. So normally, Andrew Carnegie said church leads in 3 generations. And that is generally the case. And in fact, in my family, which is very extended, because we still have common interests through my great grandfather, many of my fourth generation cousins are basically just working for a living. But because my father was very dynamic and very giving to his children, I've been blessed with really good fortune, which give me the freedom to do things and be charitable and give a lot, support a lot. So I've been able to fund fullofideas.com on my own resources, but now we need to step up to a higher level. So I really need funding from others. And I want to use the FOI Equity Inc. initial offering valuation to give stock options to all my key people and my kids to transfer wealth down to the next generation in a tax efficient way. I hate paying tax. I'm a Christian libertarian and I like efficiency. So the best way to do things is to give an asset when it's at a very low value. And I think FY Equity Inc. at our initial valuation could end up being a trivial value compared to its ultimate value. I mean, I know it's a wild, interesting world, but God has blessed me with these big ideas. They come to me in great detail, worked out. Some of them have issues. Some of them may have technical issues, but many of them are very sound. I've been building stuff since I was a young kid. I built a workshop, 30 by 30 workshop, when I was 12 years old.
Wow.
And
I started at a young age then.
Oh, yeah. I took apart my first lawnmower motor when I was 5 years old. And I've been tearing stuff apart and building stuff. So I'm just kind of a creative mechanical dynamo.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to have you on the show, especially as a multi-generational man of faith. And I'll just say this, David, that 4 generations of, call it just like generosity mindsets, is a huge part of the topic of funding on the show. And candidly, not many people talk about funding from a generosity point of view. But I was curious, from your perspective, what does generosity mean to you, and what role does giving and generosity play in your investments?
Well, basically, I'm a very generous person, and I think that Michael Dell had the right idea for his Dell computer when at the early stage he transferred equity to a whole bunch of people. I'm not sure if they bought it or if he gave it. But Michael Dell created a whole class of people in the Austin area called Dellionaires that are all multimillionaires from their Dell stock that they got for nothing. or very little. So, unfortunately, with federal policy being so corrupt, if I'm worth $1 billion, if I want to give you $1 million, I have to pay $400,000 of tax. But if I give you $1,000 worth of stock, that's tax exempt. And if it turns into $1 million, you get $1 million. So the way to be efficient and not pay the government a ton of money is to give money away when it's at a very low value. So that's what my vision is with FOI Equity Inc. is to be a vehicle to share the wealth in a super tax efficient way, where I can create a whole group of people that are worth $1 million or more. And my encouragement to them would be, and as a shareholder, they'll be getting messages from me. I would encourage them, if they're blessed with good fortune, if everything works out, that they be generous with their money.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the sad thing is our tax code is so anti-giving that if you give more than $100,000 to charity, it's only 60% deductible. So if you give away another $100,000, you have to make $120,000 to pay $20,000 of tax on the $40,000 that's not deductible. So it discourages giving. So one of my philosophies is that we need to have the charitable donation tax deduction changed, where donations that go directly to helping people are 120% deductible, and donations to things like foundations and schools, endowments and whatnot are just at the same tax rate they are right now. But I want to encourage people to give actively to helping other people and not have government meeting human needs so inefficiently. Social Security is a cruel entity that treats the elderly horribly. If you have trouble with Social Security, it's a horrible bureaucracy to deal with. I don't know if you've ever been to a Social Security office, but they're a nightmare. And for somebody that's older and kind of impaired, it's just impossible. So we need to take care of our elderly humanely. And personally, as a Christian, I don't want anybody in America to be going hungry and not have a place to stay. But I think that needs to be done privately, not through government.
Yeah, wow. I really like that mission and how you've connected that to your funding focus. I'm curious now for your FOI for fullofideas.com, which resonates with me because I too have lots of ideas. Maybe you're brewing, watching this for the first time. Please drop a comment in. We see lots of folks in the comments. Where are you tuning in from? But I'm curious, David, how do you integrate generosity and this culture of giving into your fund? In other words, what social causes are you contributing to maybe more publicly from the lens of an investor? And why do you choose to do that? And why should more investors also be generous with their funds?
Well, I was raised by a very devout Christian, and he had a life-changing experience when he was in his 40s, where he was blown up in an oil field accident and had a near-death experience and saw Jesus and came back committed to giving to help others and devoted his life to making money and giving it away and raising money. And by being an active giver, he was able to basically shame people into giving to his causes, saying, hey, I'm in this deal. He wasn't a fundraiser that's making money off the funds. Like a lot of professional fundraisers take 10% of the donation for their fundraising. Dad was putting money in, and he built up a big school in Dallas. But his biggest accomplishment was starting something called Educational First Steps, which has grown to helping 7,000 poverty kids aged 0 to 4 have life-transforming educational experiences in poverty daycare centers in their communities. And it does not take a top-down approach, but a partnering approach, sending a consultant into every school every week to work with the staff on a peer-to-peer basis, not on a top-down, taking charge world. So Educational First Steps is a phenomenal charity, needs to grow to be global. And so that's one thing I love to talk about. And I'm so proud of my dad for starting that over 30 years ago. And so we're excited about it. I hope people will go to that site. If you're inspired in your community, they'd love to share how to do things so you could start your own version in your community. So great charity. Dad did a lot of good and had a big attendance at his funeral. Had 500 people come to his funeral and all kinds of people out of the community, charitable people, and just a wonderful foundation. So that's my goal, is to have a big funeral where a lot of people celebrate my life and realize that I tried to go to heaven.
Yeah, I love
Anyway,
that.
this
You pulled
luncheon
up the website here.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
you're
I love
getting
this. This is great. And in fact, if you're in the Dallas area seeing this live, tomorrow, Friday, April 17th, there is a luncheon with Leland Vittert over there at the Fairmont Dallas over on Acard Street, starting at 11 a.m. Bellinis and Bites. You know what, David? I would love a Friday morning Bellini. How fun is that with the meet and greet and an afternoon program? That just sounds really wonderful.
You have to sign up in advance. I mean, it is, and they may be sold out. I'm not sure there's still seats available, but if anybody's down, say I have a table there, and
that's great.
You can reach out and say, love to meet you. If you're in the Dallas area, I'd love to have lunch with you. I love a good lunch conversation. So, and as people can tell from my show here, my appearance here, I've got lots to say, and I will give you some thought-provoking conversation. And I love conversation where the unexpected comes in of what somebody's got on their mind to think about. So, anyway, it's all good, and we're trying to make a difference. And we also are trying to raise money for Get Real Alliance and Remineralize the Earth, which is a small charity that has a great name, remineralize.org. And it's the natural vehicle to do earth-wide remineralization as a private charity instead of a government organization. So I hope people will go to remineralize.org and get excited about how things are going. Small charity, been a devout woman who's run it for 40 years as her life mission, and I love to see it grow to be a huge charity. So I'm a key supporter, and my book is talking about remineralization. So anyway, I hope people enjoy my contacts and my life history, which has been so interesting. Having economic freedom has let me grow and learn and read and do a lot of stuff. I had a huge career in agriculture, learning all kinds of work, and so it's all good.
Yeah, that's exciting. I think very often we hear people talking about fundraising as investors, either an angel or family office or venture cap firm. And of course, guys talk about faith as well. But I think very rarely do we see kind of the experience that you have here, especially in sustainability. And so before we get to the sustainability aspect, though, we've got a really awesome topic, which I'm excited to jump into during our faith segment. And so let's play that faith intro and we'll get right to it.
All right.
Focusing on faith for a moment.
All right, David Munson Jr., folks, for those tuning in, we're talking about faith and understanding true Christian faith in innovation. Now, David, you're a devout Christian. Your father and grandfather raised you right with Christian values there in Dallas. And also, you mentioned that you're a Christian libertarian. Now, in a world where faith can be challenging and religion can be sometimes triggering, how do you apply true faith in your walk in a world of innovation and technology?
Well, two books that are very important in my life were the Bible and Atlas Shrugged. And Atlas Shrugged is an atheist book about a world-saving inventor who saves the world by destroying it, destroying the governmental socialist nature of the world. But it's a very negative book, and the end of the book results in humanity suffering horribly. So Ayn Rand was very inspirational in the conservative movement and the libertarian movement, and she didn't believe in charity. So where the Libertarian Christian Institute differs is it supports Christian faith. Ayn Rand was a hateful atheist, and I like her writing, but I realize it comes from her viewpoint, which is really mean. And unfortunately, conservatives get labeled as not caring because they don't advocate for private charity to meet human needs instead of government. They talk about we need welfare reform. We don't need to give people money. Well, if somebody's all screwed up and can't work, they don't need to be out on the street begging for money. They really need a affordable rooming house to live in. And but we've regulated economical housing out of business. You can't have one room housing anymore. You have to have, quote, an apartment with a bathroom and a kitchen. Well, that adds cost dramatically. And somebody that's mentally impaired does not need a kitchen. They need somebody to fix them a meal in a common table because they just don't have the sense to prepare a good meal. If they're left to their own devices on food stamps, they'll buy Cokes and potato chips. So I support Inspired Vision Compassion Center in Dallas, which gives 2,000 families a day a grocery cart of food that was headed to the landfill, but it's still good. And it's an amazing charity that feeds that 2,000 families a day on less than $1 a family. So Inspired Vision needs support. If you're in the Dallas area, go pay them a visit. You will be amazed at all the work they do. It's just incredible. So they need money. They need support. So if you give to one thing, give to them. I give them a little money. I'd love to give more. I'm trying to get more money coming in so I can do more charity. I helped them buy that building you see. I gave them the down payment and the closing costs. They still owe money on the building. And it's a great thing. It's a great family operation. There you see a picture of the family showing some donations and whatnot they're doing. Karen Belknap is a true saint, a pastor and a founder of a charter school that educates 3,000 kids in the worst neighborhood in Dallas. Phenomenal family. So I'm just honored to know them and honored to be able to support them and promote. And that's a real faith mission. You know, faith without works is hollow. You can say, oh, I love God, I love Jesus, I love my neighbor. If you don't give any money, let me tell you something. In my mind, you're not going to heaven. If you're not giving generously time and money out of a love for people, not to earn a way to heaven, but just because you're filled with the Holy Spirit and you want to make a difference. So if you're not feeling like you need to make a difference, you probably haven't really welcomed the Holy Spirit in. Because the Holy Spirit's eager to come into your life, but it's not near as persistent as the devil. And the devil makes people say things like, well, I give to the government, I pay taxes, so I don't need to give to charity. Well, my father that saw Jesus told me that you need to give as much charity as you can. At the end of his life, he was giving 80% of his money to charity every year. Paying taxes on a lot of the donations, like unfortunately our tax code does. Made a huge difference in the world, like say with Educational First Steps, other schools, other things, libraries. So you can make a huge difference. And I'm sorry I have a respiratory cough that just will not go away and keeps hammering on me. But anyway, we are making a big difference, and I feel called to preach repentance and a return to really true Christian faith. I would encourage people to look into the Anabaptist faith denomination, which is a real return to original church Christian values of absolute pacifism. Most of the mainline churches going from the Roman takeover of Christianity embraced state warfare. And the early church was totally pacifist, with church members gladly going to their death rather than revoking or fighting and renouncing their faith. And the Anabaptist movement has been persecuted heavily by the organized state churches in Europe. It still survives a small faith in America. So I'm going to a Mennonite church in Dallas. It's a very small little church, Peace Mennonite Church. They have a Zoom and YouTube video that you can watch if you're looking for a faith opportunity to do online church. I was blessed with a big ranch and had a Mennonite community out near the ranch that lived humbly. And I had a lot of them do work for me. They were kind of they did various contracting work and were always very productive, humble people, and just a wonderful group, very charitable. So if you're looking for a church home, I would think about doing something very different by going back to the original Christian faith of absolute pacifism. And the Mennonite church, the Anabaptist movement is very much motivated by that theology.
That's wonderful. There are so many topics here, and you're calling to repentance. When I was growing up, the thought there was that repentance really in the original language meant 180-degree turn away to go the opposite direction. And you put a GPS in your car, and you get directions, and sometimes it will say make a U-turn. And so repentance
Exactly.
like a U-turn.
Well,
And
we
getting
do need to make a U-turn.
getting to our topic here of innovation, I'm curious how you apply some of those concepts that you're talking about in innovation.
Well, I have a different viewpoint on
Mhm.
humanity and innovation. I compare humanity to a 2-year-old child on an Easter egg hunt that thinks it's finding the eggs when in reality its parent is guiding them to find the eggs. And if you hide eggs for a 2-year-old, you put them out right in the open. They're not hidden at all. If you hide eggs for an older child, you make it harder to find. Anyway, humanity has been blessed with resources that God created for humanity over billions of years. I think in the early times of the Bible, there were literally chunks of copper and gold on top of the ground that the early humans found and fabricated into things. When you read accounts in the Bible of the things they built, there were just massive quantities of gold involved and copper and bronze. All these ores, I think, were not available in the way they are today, where people mine gold and get 1 ton of rock yields 1 ounce of gold. I think people were picking up big chunks of gold, saying, wow, this is shiny rock. I can beat it and it changes shape, and I can make a pan out of it. Anyway, I think God has guided man with innovations. I think if you look at people, quote, finding minerals, the chance of finding a mineral out there is very low. But if God guides you to it, I believe God has given me these inventions that fullofideas.com has. I don't think it's, oh, David is just so fucking smart. Excuse my French. I think I'm inspired. I think I get these ideas to make the world a better place. I think the people that innovated things like finding spindletop, which my great-great-grandfather was involved in the Texas Oil Company that found Spindletop. And, they had an intuition, hey, this thing's kind of leaking oil here. Let's drill in and see what we find. They found a mountain of oil that changed the world and ended the slaughter of whale for whale oil for lambs. So, people talk about oil and gas being so bad. Well, if we hadn't found Spindletop and had a huge supply of oil, we wouldn't have gotten away from killing whales for oil, for lambs. And there wouldn't be any whales today. Instead, whales have rebounded, and they're just wonderful creatures, part of God's creation. And it was horrible to kill them for their fat and boil the fat down for oil. But that was man's early days. So I'm glad the whales have recovered. I love nature, but I also realize it's a dynamic world with creatures coming in and out. And we don't need to kill things necessarily, but I do think in some cases, some of the desert creatures need to go away because we restore the deserts to be in a lusher environment. Anyway, I'm for an active management of the world to make the world a much better place that can support more animals and more people.
I like that. What a statement. Support more animals and more people through faith and innovation. So I'd like to just double down on that in terms of innovation and the difference, right, as a patent owner and founder yourself, and a funder and a business owner, a ranch operator, clearly a philanthropist, community man, someone who's generationally successful and experienced. I'm sure you've made many learnings in your life. So when you talk about innovation, how do we integrate values of ethics and morals at the forefront of innovation rather than after the fact?
Well, I think the core, basically your founding principles need to be strong. And
Right.
I really love Rotary. I love the Rotary four-way test, which ends with, will it be beneficial to all concerned? So in my invention process, I never want to invent something that's not going to make the world a better place. If I have an idea that's kind of destructive, and I have a very philosophically climate-oriented associate who thinks my effort to strengthen football players with my fast twitch muscle training machine is not a noble cause. He thinks I shouldn't work on that, but it's a cheap invention to develop within my limited resources, and it has the potential to make a lot of money so I can pursue other things. And it has a benefit of improving the safety of being a football player by training against a machine that's moderate and doesn't impose concussion forces, as opposed to impacting another player and possibly having helmet-to-helmet contact, which can cause brain injury. So anyway, he doesn't think football is a good sport, thinks football ought to go away. I think football appeals to the primal urge in humanity to see violence and in a controlled way. And it's very popular and very big. So anyway, I'm working on the fast twitch muscle trainer. Like I say, I have this real moral character saying that's not the noblest invention you have, but we think it can help strengthen people and be used for rehab and other things. So, and we have some other inventions in the fast twitch muscle training area that can be broader to help older people maintain vitality and being able to take a big step instead of a shuffle step. But innovation needs to be focused on making the world better. I love my prairie grass invention to harvest native prairie grass at half height so it regrows super fast. And we think that's got the potential to be 1,000 times bigger than the fast twitch muscle trainer, but it's a higher dollar investment. And unfortunately, as the inventor, one thing is that if you invent something, somebody else may have already invented it.
Right.
And in the case of the progress system, it turns out there's prior art that's not exactly what we're doing. I would say they kind of patented the car, and I patented the car with the V8 engine.
Nice.
So they can't do what I'm doing,
Right.
but I can't do without working with them. So I've got to talk to that company and get a license worked out with them where we can both mutually benefit from going back to native progress.
Yeah, I love that. And we're going to get a little bit into the sustainability aspect in our third topic here shortly. But I did want to bring this onto the screen, the rotary four-way test. I really appreciate
I would encourage everybody to join Rotary. Rotary is a great organization, great way to have fellowship and do some good charity. The other great thing about Rotary is a way to do charitable giving without getting on a mailing list. Because you can have your Rotary Club give. You can give to your Rotary
Right.
Club, and they can give, and it's anonymous.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And so for those who are watching this and tuning in, this is a great way to test if your innovation aligns with your truth or your faith values, independent of what religion or faith you're part of. Now, David and I
Rotary is multi-denominational. I mean,
exactly.
They've got people of all faiths in Rotary. It's
Exactly.
an international group. And if you get a chance to go to a Rotary convention, it's just amazing all the people you meet from all over the world that have traveled a long way to be part of a Rotary convention.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it. And so in terms of the patent process, since we're talking about innovation and there's inventions and there's innovation. So when you notice that your one of your patent colleagues, if you will, had invented something that you might license, how did you integrate your core values and principles into the way that you approach potential collaboration with not necessarily a competitor, but someone who has a hold of that market and is patent protected?
Well, I just believe it needs to be a win-win deal. It needs to be good for them, good for us. And, sometimes you find out that a good invention is already public domain.
Right.
Like I had a power system, a new way to make power using solar energy that was more efficient and better. And anyway, it's a great invention, but unfortunately, there's a ton of prior art out there. So we couldn't proceed with the patent, but it's a great idea. We may be able to improve it a little bit. And because it's already been patented and many of the patents have expired, it's public domain, so we can use the technology without paying a license fee. We just can't have an exclusive where we control it.
Right.
So you don't always get to control your world, but if you can make the world a better place, you need to do it.
Very much like your perspective on this topic, David. And I can tell that you're definitely a man of faith, a man of real Christian values in Dallas, and definitely an innovator and techie who loves to innovate and be generous. What a pleasure to be able to have you on the show. And I'm excited for our third topic here, David. We're going to get into future and all things future. Let's play that intro video.
Let's talk about quantum and the future of technology.
All right, this is a big topic, David. We're talking about renewable energy, reliable power, and HVAC systems. This has to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry over the next 20 years. I mean, maybe even multiple hundreds of trillions given the rate of inflation. But why don't we just start with renewable energy? What is the future of renewable energy?
Well, I don't think solar PV and horizontal axis wind turbines are a good solution to power needs because they don't produce reliable power. I measured the sun for a year with a minute-by-minute data logger because I had a patent on a new way to do solar energy that was a solar thermal process. And so we wanted to analyze the sun so we could kind of see how reliable a source it is. And frankly, friends, it's not reliable. Everybody talks about average solar radiation. Averages don't matter. My Latin teacher in grade school said 0 and 100 average out to 50, but the extremes are totally at the other ends of the spectrum. So we need to have reliable, dispatchable power. And when we measured the sun with a minute by minute data logger, we saw a graph that went like this and boom, 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 with the power going almost to zero because clouds came across the sun. So we don't notice clouds coming across the sun much as people, unless it's a big cloud, because the sky glows. So we get radiation from everywhere. But a solar photovoltaic panel needs that concentrated solar radiation directly from the sun. So when a cloud comes across it, the output drops dramatically. So we don't have reliable power. People say, well, we need batteries. Well, we looked at the graphs. You need 20 times more solar panels and 20 times more batteries than your average load. So if you need a megawatt of power, you need 20 megawatts of solar power generation and 20 megawatts of batteries, because batteries only last for 2 hours. So to have enough power to last for 2 days, you need 20 times more batteries than your average load. People aren't thinking about that. They're thinking about these lithium-ion batteries that catch on fire and don't last. There's a lot of very short-term thinking. We've got years to make a decision. If we do my program to make the world carbon negative while we still use oil and gas, there's no immediate rush that we need to get off oil and gas. Natural gas is a super clean, abundant fuel. It's one of the most common compounds on Earth. It's easy to make biologically. We make it in our guts. We make it in anaerobic digesters. So we can make a lot of natural gas renewably. I'm a big fan of that. We've also got to be a lot more efficient. We've got to build housing that uses a fraction of the energy. I'm working on some vehicle ideas to make vehicles that can average hundreds of miles per gallon. And that's one of my areas of invention. We didn't include in the book because I had too many patents. I filed 4 patents writing the book, and took some big inventions out to not burn off patent time and not take up more money than I could do. Anyway, we're making big progress. People can go to fullofideas.com. Check us out. We're going to have our offering up on the website soon. It's a crowdfunding format, easy online registry, no big problem, and an opportunity to share and help me make a difference. So if you like what I'm saying, guess what I need? I need a pat on the back. The best pat on the back is some financial support, because I will spend the money wisely, making the world a better place. So innovation is all about it. I feel like God has inspired me to make a difference. I do think your metaphor of repentance being a 180 turn is very accurate. If you're headed over a cliff, you don't need to slow down. You need to go backwards.
Yeah, I like that. I slowed down. You got to go backwards. Yeah, you got to completely shift into a new gear. And I like that perspective, David. I'm a huge fan of yours. In fact, you have a really well-rounded perspective on energy. And I was actually just looking for this photograph. I'm not sure if you can see this, but I was actually driving from Las Vegas to Palm Spring on Highway 15. And there were these massive solar fields, which I thought were solar fields at first, but actually these are what we would call mirrors, and is reflecting the sun into a boiler. And I found out
Exactly.
it was a massive boiler, and they're using actually steam power. So tell me a little bit about reliable power, which is kind of that next topic as we talk about future tech. What is the role of renewable energy, and how do we actually have reliable power where, to your point, we have a 10x fold need to extend the power life cycle out to even 2 days? Well, if there's a near end time situation, or we have like an emergency situation where we need reliable power, how do we, and we're consuming more power with AI and data centers, so how do we create reliable power. Like, what is David Munson Jr.'s perspective on reliable power?
Well, I think having power that has rotational inertia generating the electricity is essential to meet power surges, because basically a steam turbine or a gas turbine has massive rotating mass. So if there's a big power surge, if a bunch of people turn on their coffee makers, there's a huge demand increase for electricity. And those turbines are slowed down slightly to generate a surge of extra electricity. The problem with solar photovoltaic is currently people don't have any flywheel effect. I would argue in many ways, instead of having an inverter, which electrically converts DC into AC, producing non-true AC sine wave, but a simulated sine wave that's actually a step function instead of a curve. We need to use the DC power to spin a DC motor that spins an AC generator to have that inertia built in and generate a true perfect sine wave instead of a synthetic sine wave that's not really a true sine wave, but is a step function. In terms of a sine wave does this and this and this, goes from positive voltage to negative voltage. An inverter creates a synthetic, it goes straight up, straight across, straight down, down negative, over, back up. So it's not a true curve, and it's not as gentle as a sine wave. So Tesla was an incredible genius, knowing how these waves could be manipulated with transformers, change in voltage. You can't change DC voltage easily at all, but you can change AC by changing the windings in a transformer. And that genius came up with all that transformed American electricity. Anyway, I love
it. We're getting deep into it, the reliable power. So in terms of reliable power, I'm hearing you say that maybe there's a combination of bringing this renewable energy into a place that actually creates reliable power specifically for high voltage surges and high instantaneous needs, such as powering your air conditioner this summer. They're saying it's going to be a pretty hot summer. So we're going to need a lot of that reliable power.
We also need to get really sensible.
Right.
I'm not ready for government regulation as a libertarian, but I do think people make stupid decisions. And one of the decisions house builders come up with is saving money by buying inefficient air conditioning equipment at the lowest possible cost. Where what needs to be built is geothermally coupled heat pumps that use the near constant temperature of the earth to sharply reduce the energy use by the HVAC system.
Yeah.
And people don't do that. That geothermally coupled heat pump technology has largely gone away with this cost-saving, energy-wasting strategy of having air-coupled heat pumps. So on a hot day, the air conditioner is working its ass off, trying at 120-degree liquefaction temperature, whereas with geothermal, it's at 50 degrees. So it has almost no energy load at all on a hot day with geothermally coupled. So we need to get real. People can go to getrealtv.com, which is my TV channel. And if they want to see more of me and more of my content, we've got a lot of content on it. We've got a video documentary of my climate program. So they can go to getrealtv.com and see that, or go to getrealliance.org and see my website advocating for my climate program, and a link to get my book. So anyway, if you like what I'm saying.
I really appreciate you sharing that, David. That's awesome that you have a perspective here. And I always had a curiosity in the back of my mind. I'm not necessarily a real mechanical or electrical person. My father is more of that with his jet propulsion degree and mechanical engineering degree. But I was always curious how we can capture geothermal energy and to be able to integrate that into the power grid. And what I'm hearing you say is that HVAC systems is a great way to start doing that, where we might
Well,
have something a little bit more expensive, but more energy efficient. Is that
well,
what I'm hearing you
a,
say?
a geothermal heat pump does not make electricity like geothermal heat from deep in the earth. It's very high temperature, can make steam and make power, or use an
Right,
organic Rankine cycle engine to make power. A
right,
geothermal heat pump uses the fact that the earth is cool at a shallow depth. It gets hot as you get deeper.
right,
But because the earth cools at night and gets cold in the winter, the temperature of the earth a few feet down is constant. And it's
right.
got enormous thermal mass. So you just really can't change it. And the beautiful thing about a geothermally coupled heat pump is in the summer, you're heating the earth, and in the winter, you're cooling it.
Right.
So you kind of cycle your thermal battery that is
Right.
the earth. You heat it up during the summer, and then you cool it off in the winter.
Yeah. Yeah, really fascinating here, David. So we didn't have nuclear on here, but when you talk about geothermal, and also efficient HVAC and power, I'm curious to hear your perspective on modular nuclear.
Well, I'm actually in favor of micronuclear. I think nuclear power is a very amazing technology, but
Mhm.
it's only 30% efficient producing power. In terms of, if you burn a kilowatt of nuclear fuel, you get 300 watts of electricity and
Hmm.
700 kilowatts of heat. So
Right.
my idea is to use a nuclear plant near HVAC loads and do
Hmm.
absorption refrigeration with the waste heat to provide cooling and refrigeration and heating for the building using the nuclear fuel far more efficiently.
Right.
I hate waste. As a mechanical engineer, you
Right.
just hate waste.
Yeah.
I hate the
Same
idea
as
of
a
wasting.
German.
I hate wasting 70% of the energy.
Right.
When if we use it in a micronuclear plant that's only a few kilowatts, we can capture all that heat and use it to make refrigeration, air conditioning.
Nice. Well, we've got some
So,
folks in the chat saying micronuclear all the way. Love that. I
yeah,
love that. And yeah, that's one of the benefits, David, of going live is that we have an active, engaging audience.
I love it. I love seeing some of these quotes from people. It's validating. There's nothing better as a speaker than applause.
That's right. Cheers
You
to that.
know,
Here, a little applause for you. I like that. So we want to go through a
yeah.
couple quick questions here. There was one that was pretty interesting, which was how do you see the tax incentive changes being implemented in a way that ensures accountability and prevents misuse while still encouraging more direct giving? From Layla Tembo.
Well, unfortunately, the government is in the business of creating more government, not meeting human needs. And um, so our tax code is badly skewed. I'm really in favor of getting rid of income tax altogether in a perfect world, but we need to incentivize charitable giving. So my strategy is to change the tax code to not give charitable donations a broad, sweeping, uniform rate, but factor in human needs and meeting human needs. You know, giving Harvard $100 million for their endowment when they're not even using their endowment to fund the college, they're just growing it. It's just this big pool of money. They could give free tuition to everybody going to Harvard, but they don't.
Right.
They grow their endowment.
Well,
And
yeah, that's the
many
nature of
organizations,
college and education as a for-profit entity. So that's part of it, right?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but
they're
again, I
just,
think we're getting slightly off topic. Maybe that's topic for another episode, David. We're kind of wrapping up here at the
I'd
very
love,
end.
yeah, I'd love to be on again. I've really enjoyed the show. I encourage everybody to watch you and share you and hopefully grow your audience. I think you're a great interviewer, and it's been one of my favorite ways to spend a little time talking with you.
Well, David, I really appreciate that. We're going to get right into our final segment, our anchor segment. On that note, it's a segment called Beyond the Bag. So we're going to roll the film Beyond the Bag. Beyond the bag, beyond the bag, beyond the bag. All right, David, you're a pretty eclectic guy. We're very curious. What do you carry around with you all of the time in your bag or on your person?
Well, I take this teacup with me. I get up in the morning early and start drinking iced tea unsweetened with lemon juice, and I drink it all day long, and I drink a bunch of iced tea at lunch. I take this recyclable, renewable cup with me to lunch at a diner, and they fill it back up with iced tea where I have iced tea in the afternoon. So I love iced tea. I encourage people to drink it instead of soft drinks. It gives you some caffeine, makes you feel good. So anyway, that's my favorite thing I take with me. It's here on my table. I've got two glasses of iced tea already from activity. I went to breakfast at the diner and got another iced tea. So I'm loaded with iced tea. Gives me a lot of caffeine to make me even a little more exciting than I already am.
Nice. I love that. That's wonderful. Really, really beautiful. I don't know. Actually, no one has said they brought a sustainable, renewable glass or a drink in their bag. And when you said that pre-show, I genuinely thought, I'm not sure what he means by this, but we're just going to figure it out live on the show. So that's why we love the Beyond the Bag segments. For me today, I bring a small little portable lithium ion battery that I charge with my DC charger. But what it does is it gives me just a little bit of extra juice on my phone. All right. So in conclusion, folks, thanks for those tuning in. We had a very eclectic audience today. Go get David's book. You can find that. He's got Get Real, A Positive Solution to Climate Change, which is really a fantastic read. I'm going to get that probably myself. But David, what is the best way for people to get connected with you? And who are you primarily looking to get connected with?
Well, I'm looking for people who want to be investors, who want to help, who want to motivate. I'm based in the Dallas area. Love to have you join me at Mama's Daughter's Diner on Royal Lane. I eat there almost every day. So if I don't have a guest, glad to visit with you. If you want to schedule something, we can schedule it. You can go to davidmunsonjr.net.
Wonderful. Well, David, that was a pleasure. I don't think we've had any guests on the show that have had such a warm, inviting personality and personal invite. I just have to say that's the Dallas way to do things, with iced tea and being a man of faith. So, David, we're going to wrap up the show here. It's a real pleasure having you on the show.
Look forward to doing it again.
Fantastic. So thank you so much for all of you joining. Look, today's been a wonderful episode of the David Daily Show, going live on all platforms. And this today was our 50th episode. Folks, on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Kick, and many other platforms distributed on the replay. So if you weren't able to catch this, but you caught it on the replay, thank you so much. And for our live audience, you've been live with us for 50 episodes. That's incredible in just 1 year. Powered by Reviting, your live stream producer and video content distribution team. Couldn't do it without you. Thanks so much. And here's a quick word as we close out our outro.